My name is Aria Anderson, and my story began with heartbreak. I remember the day my family fell apart as clearly as if it were yesterday. The courtroom was cold and heavy with tension. Wooden benches creaked under the weight of the few people who had come to witness our shame. I sat next to Mom, her hand trembling in mine. Her fingers were cold, though the air felt warm and suffocating. Then the judge spoke. His voice was deep and final, based on the evidence presented. David Anderson is hereby found guilty of domestic violence against his family and sentenced to 10 years in prison. 10 years. The words echoed in my head like a church bell tolling for a funeral. I turned to look at my father, David Anderson. Once, he had been a proud man, the owner of a small but thriving company, the man who had taught me how to ride a bike down the dusty paths of our village, the man who had carried me on his shoulders and called me his little star. Now, he stood in handcuffs, his head bowed, refusing to meet my eyes. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at Mom. It was as if he had already left us long before the officers led him away. And just like that, our world collapsed. It didn't end with the trial. Without Dad, the company that carried our family's name fell into the hands of Victoria Hayes, his former business partner. She had once visited our home, laughing with Mom and calling her sister. But when the time came, she showed no mercy. She took everything. The betrayal burned deeper than the whispers of our neighbors. People in the village spoke behind their hands. Did you hear? The Andersons are ruined. Our home, once filled with laughter, became silent. The roof leaked when it rained. The walls, thin and tired, creaked in the wind, and the absence of Dad felt like a ghost lingering in every corner. But Mom, Laura Anderson, was stronger than steel. Even when her eyes were swollen from crying at night, she stood tall every morning. She refused to let life swallow us whole. One morning, she woke me before the sun rose. Aria, she said softly, but with a spark of determination in her voice. Get up. We're going to the city. The city, I mumbled, rubbing sleep from my eyes. She nodded firmly. You and your brother deserve a chance, a real chance. I will not let your lives end here, trapped by this village and by your father's mistakes. Sound of an old truck engine. Countryside ambience fades in the ride to the city was long and bumpy. Our truck, old and stubborn, rattled as we carried fresh milk to sell, just like we had done countless times before. The dirt road stretched endlessly, framed by golden fields and clear skies. Mom drove with her eyes fixed on the road. Her posture was straight, her knuckles pale from gripping the steering wheel. She looked unshakable. During a short stop, she handed me a piece of bread. Aria, she said, I've enrolled you in a new high school in the city. Your brother Ethan is already in college there. I don't care if I have to work day and night. I just want both of you to have a future. I hesitated, thinking of our house back in the village. Its roof was nearly caving in, and the walls could barely stand the storm. But shouldn't we fix the house first? I asked softly. She shook her head. A house can wait. Education cannot. I don't want you to keep suffering here, bullied, ignored, trapped. Promise me, Aria. Promise me you'll study hard. Promise me you'll lift our family's name again. Her words wrapped around my heart like a warm blanket and a chain at the same time. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. I promise, Mom. I'll make you proud. When we reached the city, it was like stepping onto another planet. Cars honked. Motorbikes weaved through traffic like restless fish. Tall buildings rose against the sky, blocking out the sun in places. Flashing billboards and neon signs reflected off wet streets. Even in daylight, our new home was a single rented room. It was barely larger than our old kitchen back in the village, but Mom smiled as if it were a palace. That night, Ethan came home from his cafe job with a package wrapped in brown paper. "For you," he said, grinning. I opened it to find a new school bag and a second-hand smartphone. The bag smelled like fresh fabric, and the phone had scratches along the edges, but to me, they were priceless treasures. "Thank you, Ethan," I whispered. He ruffled my hair like he used to when we were little. "We may be poor now, Aria, but one day, things will be different. I promise." I fell asleep hugging the bag, my heart full of nervous excitement. Tomorrow would be my first day in the new school. The next morning, a disaster. I overslept. "Aria, wake up," Ethan shouted, shaking me. Panic shot through me as I realized the time. My first day, and I was already late. I scrambled to put on my new uniform. The fabric was stiff and unfamiliar, but in the cracked mirror, I saw a new version of myself. For a moment, I almost believed I could blend in. When I arrived at the school gates, the courtyard was silent. No one in sight. My stomach dropped. "Oh no, I'm late." A stern voice cut through the quiet. "You, why are you late?" I turned to see Mr. Robert Miller, the discipline officer, tall, broad-shouldered, with a frown carved permanently into his face. I'm sorry, sir. It's my first day. Excuses." He barked. 10 minutes late means punishment. Stand under the sun until I say otherwise." Humiliation burned in my chest as I obeyed. The sun beat down on me, sweat trickling down my neck, my heavy bag pulling at my shoulders. Then, I saw them, a group of students walking in at least 5 minutes later than I had. Mr. Miller waved them through with a smile, and in that moment, I understood. This school wasn't going to be fair. When I finally stepped into my first classroom, the air buzzed with laughter and noise. City kids were bold, confident, and some a little cruel. I introduced myself, my voice small but steady. "Hi, my name is Aria Anderson. I just moved here from the countryside." A few kids snickered. One boy in the back muttered something that made his friends laugh. But a cheerful girl leaned toward me. She had a bright smile and long, wavy hair. "I'm Chloe," she said. "If you want to be our friend, you have to like spicy snacks. Ever had sublek?" "Sublek," I repeated, confused. "It's amazing." "No sublek, no friendship," she joked. I smiled nervously. "Then I love sublek." Physical education class was next. The locker room was chaos. Girls shouted and laughed as they changed, teasing one another about their shoes and hair. I kept my head down, changing as quickly as possible, trying to disappear. On the field, the sun was bright and warm. The fresh air filled my lungs, and for the first time since the trial, I smiled. For a moment, I felt freed up by the end of the day. I was exhausted. The walk back to our rented room felt long, but the city lights made everything seem almost magical. They reflected on the wet pavement like tiny stars scattered on the ground. I hugged my bag to my chest, thinking of everything I'd been through. I didn't know if I would ever fit in. I didn't know if the other students would ever see me as more than a poor country girl. But deep down, I made a silent vow. One day, I would rise above all of this. One day, the world would know the name Aria Anderson, not as a victim, not as a poor girl, but as someone who turned pain into strength and reclaimed everything my family had lost.